All right, we're going to start talking about percents today, and we're going to have you guys solve some percent problems. But before we do that, we need to do some conversions between percents and unit rates or decimals. So before we get going here, let's do that. Let's talk about what the heck percent even means. It literally means out of 100. So, and every time you're talking about percents, that's what we're thinking about. So if you earned an 85% or a B on a test, this means that if the tests were out of 100 points total, you would have gotten 85 questions correct, 85 out of 100. So a lot of times when you get your test back, your teacher writes it like this. If you just divide those two things, you get your percentage or your unit rate, which then turns into a percent. So we're going to practice going between percents and unit rates or unit rates and percents, okay? We're going to go back and forth. So let's talk about converting percents into decimals or unit rates. So there's a long way and there's a short way. I'm going to see if you guys can figure out the shortcut. So if percent means out of 100, what you can do in your calculator is do 92 out of 100, divide those two things up, and you realize that the unit rate or the decimal is 0.92. That's what your calculator does when you divide them. Same thing here. If I do 8.9 out of 100 and do that division in my calculator, I get 0.089. It gives me that unit rate or that decimal amount. Now let's think about an easier way to do this. If I don't even want to pull out my calculator, an easy way, an easy shortcut would be to just move that decimal 2 times to the left. So let's go ahead and write that shortcut here. Move decimal 2 times to the left. Let's use that shortcut for these last two. So if I take that decimal point and move it 2 times to the left, that means this as a unit rate is 0.005. Now I don't see a decimal in this last one. If you don't see a decimal, it means it's at the very end. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to move that 2 times, 1, 2. So 110% is the same thing as 1.10. Okay, so that's converting percents to decimals. Let's go the other way now. So if I have a unit rate or a decimal and I want to change it to the percent, let's talk about how we would do that. So here I'm going the other direction. So the long way would be to do 0.55 times 100. Oops. Pull out my calculator. It gives me 55%. Same thing here. Multiply this by 100. It would give me 67.5%. I don't want to pull out my calculator, so a shortcut in order to do this, I'm just going to go the other way. So I'm going to move the decimal 2 times, but to the right this time. Okay, so do that with the last two. Easy peasy, move it 2 times to the right, 2%, drop those zeros in front, 1, 2. I got to add a 0 if it goes to the back. Okay? All right, so let's go back to that 85%. You got rockin' job. But what if the test wasn't out of 100 points, thank goodness, it only had 60 points. How many points would you have earned? That's when things get a little more complicated. We're going to start talking about what if you have a question, what is 85% of a 60-point test? That's when we're going to need this percent equation. Okay, now that we know how to convert, let's talk about how we actually solve these percent problems. All right, so the next page. Anytime you're solving a legit percent problem, the reason we just practice converting is because anytime you're given a percent, you need to convert it into a decimal or a unit rate. Same thing. So your very first step with these percent problems, if you see 20% written in the problem, you can't just plug in 20%. You have to convert that to a decimal. Remember, move it 2 times to the left, so 0.20. Would be what you need to write in. After you've done that conversion, you're going to look for these 3 key words. Anytime you see the word what, I'm trying to figure that out, that's going to be a variable. Anytime I see the word is, what is this? That translates to an equal sign. And anytime you see of, that's going to be multiplication. This might mean nothing to you right now, but this is so important for these percent problems, okay? If you're looking for the percent, you need to make sure you go backwards and convert it to a percent. So if your final answer is 0.55, you need to convert that by moving this 2 times to the right, and it's going to be 55%. Okay, you don't have to do that with every problem, but some of you will. So let's use this to solve this problem. What is 85% of 60? Let's figure it out. Okay, I see the word what. That's going to be an X. I see the word is. That's going to be an equal sign. I see a percent. I need to convert that to a decimal. So 85%, I'm going to move that decimal 2 times to the left. I'm going to write 0.85, not 85. That's going to be a totally different problem. Of means to multiply, and then 60. Okay, so I literally just took every part of that sentence and converted it into an equation, a percent equation, to figure out what I need to get on that test if I want an 85%. So when I do 0.85 times 60, X is equal to 51. So that means if I got an 85% on that test out of 60 questions, I got 51 of them right. Okay? All right, let's solve these. I'm going to just translate each of those parts to an equation. So I see a percent. That needs to be a decimal, 0.45. Of multiplication, 600. Is equals what number? Something I don't know. All right, now I'm just going to multiply those two things together. So 0.45 times 600 gives me 270. X is equal to 270. Okay, let's try this one. I'm going to translate each part of this sentence. 52 is, 4%. Be really careful when you have stuff like this. My decimal's in the back. I'm going to go 1, 2. I have to add that 0 in there. So 0.04 of multiplication, what number? X. Now this one looks really different. Now my X is not by itself. Now I have an equation I have to solve. So if you think back to our last unit, I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication here to get this away. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.04. So when I do 52 divided by 0.04, that means X is equal to 1,300. Okay, you guys need to try number 3 and 4. And before you move today, you need to have those two checked. All right, good luck.